So $1 million question is, can I convert my overseas license into Australian license? The short answer is yes, but there is a process that we need to follow in order to get your overseas license converted into Australian one. So without wasting a single minute, let's discuss about this important process. Now, first thing first, can international students drive on overseas license in Australia? Long story short, yes, you can drive on your overseas license in Australia as an international student, but there is a restriction in certain states and territories where you are not allowed to drive for more than certain time frames after arriving in Australia. As an example, in Victoria, you are not allowed to drive on your overseas license after 6 months of arriving into Victoria. Same set of rules applies in some other states and territories, so make sure to check those restrictions, as after certain time frames you might be required to convert into Australian license regardless of your visa situation. But as soon as you arrive in Australia on a student visa, you can certainly start driving right away, as long as you have a full driving license from your home country. Now in this video specifically, we are going to talk about how to convert your overseas license into Australian one. Now if you don't have an overseas license at all, then the process is different. So if you want us to make a video on that topic separately, please let us know in the comment section below. But this video about overseas license conversion into Australian one has been repeatedly asked by our followers. That is why we are making this specific video. Now, if you are coming from one of those lucky countries which are recognized country in Australia, which means your country's driving license standards are very similar to Australian one, and Australian government recognize that, you can easily convert your overseas license into Australian one without sitting into any tests. All you need to do is bring along your overseas license in one of the local transport office authority, pay the fee and get an Australian license. How easy is that? Now, there are only certain number of countries that are recognized like this, which can easily convert their license. Now, if you're not in one of those recognized countries, then here is the process that you need to follow. Now, the process that we are going to explain is general. It is quite similar in most states and territories. There might be one additional step or one less step in the process that you'll have to follow, but these steps are certainly going to help you for planning your driving license conversion. We always recommend you to check with your state or territory as well what are the specific requirements that they have for converting overseas license into Australian one. Now, the step number one is to get your learner's permit, also known as learner's license. Now, first thing first will be to check your eligibility, whether you are eligible for a full license or probationary license or only a learner's license. In order to get a full license in Australia, you'll have to meet certain requirements. One of them is the age, that you must be at least 21 years old or above, that you must have held this overseas license for the last 3 years or more. In certain states and territories, students coming from certain countries, like for example from India, might be required to bring a verification letter which they need to apply through their local embassy or consulate. Once you have met those requirements, you will go to your nearest transport office and bring along some documents with you for your learner's test. That will obviously include bringing your overseas license, which must be in English, and if it's not, you need to get it translated into English. You'll also need to bring some sort of identity proof document, which can be your passport. You will also have to bring a proof of your local residence. It could be a utility bill, for example, electricity bill, gas bill, or internet bill. And another form of ID could be a debit card that you can bring along that is issued by your bank. And if needed, a verification letter from your local embassy or consulate as well. Apart from this, you will also have to undergo an eye test, which will be conducted in the office itself. So if you wear glasses or contact lenses, it's very important to bring them along as well. Now, after doing those tests, you will obviously pay the fee for your test as well. In certain states, you can do this learner's test online, and other states require you to come and do it in their office. It depends upon the state or territory you will be getting your driving license in. And sometimes you can do the test right away on the same day, while a lot of times you'll have to book and then come back another day or do it online. Now, this learner's test is a theory test which will be a multiple choice questions. Most of these questions will be about the road safety rules in your local state or territory. So before you take a test, it's important that you understand the local Australian traffic road rules. In order to learn about these rules, you can download a free books usually issued by these government authorities, and you can undertake some practice tests before taking the actual learner test as well, which we highly recommend you to do so. Now, you have to usually score between 80 to 90% scores in these tests. Less than that means you will fail the test, which obviously means you have to repeat again, pay the money again. But if you pass the test, then you will be asked if you want to get your learner's license printed. Now, if you want to have an Australian ID, it is a good idea to get this learner's permit printed. It will take a week or two to arrive in your mailbox. Now, once you have done this step, the next step will be hazard test. Now, the hazard perception test is also a computer-based theory test. This test is done to see if you can identify any hazards on the road and if you can take the right steps when you identify this hazard. So you will be given certain scenarios or situations and you have to identify any hazards and take the actions accordingly. It's all going to be about the safety on the road. Obviously, this test will cost some money as well. Depending upon the state or territory, the fee will be different. But once this test is clear, they won't be issuing any other permit or cards. Then you will have to go to the next step, step 3, which is practical test. This is probably the most difficult part of the whole process, where you will be asked to undertake a practical driving test with a driving examiner. So you will be undertaking this test in a car on the road with a driving examiner. This person will ask you to do certain things and you have to follow their instructions, and they will observe your behavior while driving and the way you drive the car and park the car and many other aspects while driving. Now, we highly recommend you that before you undertake this practical test, you actually go through and get some lessons from a driving instructor. There are plenty of driving schools in Australia that actually teach on how to drive a car, what sort of things you should follow, and what are the road rules that you need to abide by. So it is ideal, if you're not confident, to not to take this test until and unless you become confident enough to actually take the test. And there is one more important reason behind it, that in most of the states and territories, if you fail this test, you are usually not allowed to drive on your overseas license after that. So it is important that you do this test only after you become confident enough that you can actually pass this test. Now, if you do end up passing the test, that's great, because then you are eligible to get a full Australian driving license. If you fail this test, you have to book again and do this practical test again. Now, the question is how long it will take to complete this process. It will certainly depend upon a lot of factors, like how quickly you can get your verifications done, how quickly you can learn and pass all these tests, and how busy the transport office is as well. Sometimes they don't have the dates available for practical tests in the near future. In all honesty, it took me nearly 2 months to get through this whole process, but I managed to get the whole process done in one go, which means I cleared my learners, then I got my hazards done, and then the practical test as well. So these are the steps you need to undertake in order to get an Australian license converted from an overseas license. Now, as I mentioned earlier, if you don't have an overseas license at all, or you have a very little experience, then the situation will change and you have some other processes to follow as well. If you want us to make a video on that, please let us know in the comment section below. We are also writing a very detailed article on each state's and territories requirements if you are converting overseas license or if you're getting license from scratch as well. So make sure to subscribe to our newsletter so you get up-to-date information for that. And again, if you find any value in today's video, make sure to share it with your friends so more people know how to convert their overseas license into Australian one. And as always, thank you for watching. See you in the next one.